for having me on, guys. This is awesome. I love gear, love talking all about it. So yeah, this is going to be really fun.
A lot of this equipment we're talking about is, it can be used for musicians and content creators in general, if you're a YouTuber.
And I've shot probably 90% of my show on this little camera.
I love you guys. Chris, you're just amazing. Jim, so are you. You guys are the best hosts ever, I think.
Just stop, please.
Just stop. No, Dave Jackson. We will not stop going live on Amazon. My name is Chris Stone. I am one half of Dealcasters, and you are watching Dealcasters live. And the more handsome gentleman on your screen over here, doing marketing the Marine Corps way, my friend, good buddy, who just got his ears lowered, Semper Fi, Jim Fuhs, looking slick today, man.
Well, you know, as you know, I start to feel like a hippie if I let the hair get too long, and I think you're somewhat the same way. And I just, you know, I almost get back to the high end tight, but you know, I just can't get rid of the facial hair now. Otherwise, people would think I'm still in the Marines. But yeah, great to be here. Really excited about our guest today. You know, had the honor and privilege to start working with Ron Karr and really getting to see what the velocity mindset is all about. So we'll be talking about that here in a little bit with Ron. But you know, Chris, I mean, I tell you, this dot live stuff we've been doing is really something creators need to think about.
And so if you're watching anywhere else, and we go on all the tubes, we like to say, anywhere where we can put this show, we want to put it. So we've got friends over watching on LinkedIn. We're on, you know, Twitch and all the tubes, right? But Jim, we know that the place to be is Amazon. And if you've never been to Amazon to watch a live stream, what better time than to watch the live stream here with our guest, Ron Karr, the author of The Velocity Mindset. And so we made it easy. So if you go on Amazon, you may, you know, they may be hitting you over the head with like slippers and automatic dog feeders or whatever's, you know, on sale. And so it's kind of hard to find the shows. So we made it easy. And so the only thing you got to do is just pop open a browser and type in dealcasters.live. If you type in that, it'll redirect you right to this show and all our other shows. We had some great guests, you know, similar, you know, not as good as our upcoming guest. You know, sorry to our former guests, but we're excited to definitely have him. And so, if you have your own show and you go live fairly often, and you're wondering, well, how do these guys do that? That must be like, you know, these guys are, you know, spending a lot of money. Actually, it only costs $1.99. To do it. And we couldn't believe it either. And so we bought a bunch of them. So we've got Dealcasters.university, Dealcasters.academy. And so, but we just want people to say, hey, go here for our live show. And then we can be in control of where that is. And it's right now it's on Amazon. So that's where we want to redirect people. And so you can have your own .live. It could be your show .live. It could be whatever you are, and it's really easy. And so you got to just go to name.com/live. Promo code. Do this after the show, by the way, because you want to hang around for Ron Karr. So write this down and go here later. Name.com/live. The promo code is GetLive, and it's $1.99, Jim, and you get people off and running and getting their own domain that they can control. And not, you can be in a Clubhouse room, you could be in Twitter Spaces, and you're not saying, oh, go to my website at, you know, blah, 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 / this, you know, / you know, what happens when you say / when you're explaining a website to somebody?
Well, like my new phrase is, you lost me at the /
Lost me at the / So we appreciate you guys joining us here on all the tubes. We appreciate, you know, Laura chiming in from Indianapolis, Tiffany Davis, who's in the house from Florida. We appreciate you in that. And look who's here, Jim. None other than Scott Ayers. Oh, man. He's watching in 2 places.
Yes.
He broke the message by sending the comment at the same time. Okay, so are you testing, Scott, or are you really watching us? Because you need to hang out for Ron Karr, definitely. And so Nina Oglesby, hi, hello from our home state of Georgia. We appreciate you joining us. I'm glad so many people. And if you want to come to Amazon, we'd love for you to. There's tons of people here in the chat. And what better place to be, Jim, than on Amazon, where you can pick up a copy of our guest's book, The Velocity Mindset, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's get things going. We've got a video that's going to give you a little bit of what Ron Karr's energy is all about. And then we're going to bring him on because I'm excited to talk with Ron. Ron is a former NSA, National Speakers Association president. He's a keynote speaker. He's just a good guy. And you're going to learn a little bit about what makes him tick when you see this video.
If you really want to gain velocity in getting people to back you in whatever you want to do, you have to engage them in the process. What we always want to strive for is to exceed others' expectations and not to disappoint people. But what we're also striving for is how to maintain our velocity and how to make sure we're working on the right tasks that move us forward. So the secret to gaining velocity and influence is to engage your audience. Many of us today are feeling out of sorts. We are in a period of flux and not sure of our future. Today is only a point in time in our lives. How we handle this difficult period will impact our overall performance in life. Are you letting this tough moment negatively impact you, or are you using it to create breakthrough thinking on what you want and need to do to win the marathon of life? Now you're taking some quantified risks which will help you gain velocity.
Welcome, Ron Karr, to Dealcasters.
Hey, Chris and Jim, how are you today?
We're doing great. Great to see you.
Living the dream.
So am I. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we started the show, Ron, you were talking. A lot of people talk about these guitars I have behind me, but you explained to me something that I'm basically going to throw all my guitars away now. I mean, they're gone after you told me what guitar you've got on your wall and the story behind it. I'd love. I mean, I think that may be a great way to maybe start, because maybe some people don't know that you are the former president of the National Speakers Association, and it's related to the guitar that you have on your wall.
Yeah. So they would give a gift, to the president on the last day of service, and on the stage at the convention, and they all knew that I'm a Springsteen nut, and so I had no clue what was coming. But when they brought this out, I nearly fainted. It's an American flag guitar, meaning it's got the stripes, it's got the stars, and it's signed by the entire E Street Band, including Clarence Clemens before he passed. Wow. So I can see it right here. Unfortunately, you can't see it right now, but it's one of my prized possessions.
Man, born in the USA. That's an amazing. Can I trade you all of these for that? Is that a deal?
No.
It's okay.
Oh, wow.
Oh, amazing. So, Ron, I know about you through Jim, and have been able to get to know you, and obviously a great person, and you've had kind of a whirlwind over these last, the lead up to the release of the book, and then since the book, and you're getting just a ton of success from it, and a lot of great reviews here on Amazon and other places, just completely unsolicited, people just being impacted by the book. How does that make, does it make you feel really good as like, by the time that thing's even released, it's almost like a success for you? But now that it's released and you're getting that feedback, how does that make you feel?
It makes me feel really great. Not so much because of what people are saying, oh, great job to me and patting me on the back. It's because it had an impact on people. That's what I live for. I live for, I read this book, Staring at the Sun, and it talks about people who have a fear of death. And what we all strive for is a legacy, but the author says, why are you worried about your legacy? You know, 50 years from now, who's going to really know you were here? Because if you really want to feel fulfilled at the end of a lifetime, think about ripples. Anytime you help somebody and then they pass that along through their actions, it's a ripple. So yeah, as long as I can create many ripples out there in the universe that are helping people get to where they want to be in their life, that's what drives me.
Amazing. Yeah. Good
And
stuff. Good stuff. Yeah.
Ron, what drove you to write the book? I mean, I think you wrote your last book in 2009, right? And that was more on selling, and now you've moved over into leadership. I mean, so what kind of inspired you to take on this task?
Well, you know, this is my 5th book. So Lead, Sell, Get Out of the Way was a bestseller, and obviously we ran on it for a long time. And I started as a sales trainer and as a sales speaker. But, you know, over the last 10 years, I started getting more into leadership because companies would bring me in, they'd hire me on retainers to work with the C-suite to create a high-performing sales culture. And as I started getting into leadership, you realize that leaders are no different than anybody. We all put our pants on the same way. We've heard that phrase, but they all have the same issues we do. So I've been doing that for a long time. I've been a featured speaker for YPO and several of their events, Young Presidents Organization. But the book is not about theory only, okay? We made it a point to tell stories so it's engaged the speakers, but it's also a vulnerable book. One of the things that I've learned in my work with leaders is that vulnerability sells. So if all you're doing is telling people what to do, but you don't share some of your experiences so they can realize, hey, you've been through it too, and you're creating that connection, they're not listening to you. That was a lesson that took me a long time to learn. In fact, when I was practicing for my acceptance speech for the presidency of NSA, I worked with one of the former presidents, who's also a presentation coach, Glenna Salisbury, who was like a second mother to me. And she really got into my soul. And she goes, you need to start this speech by addressing the big elephant in the room. Now, the big elephant could be my New York accent, but what she was really saying is, talk about the speech impediment that you had when you were a young man. I said, who's going to want to hear that? Well, I did it. And then all of a sudden, you know, 2,000 thought leaders erupt in standing ovation. Now, I tend to say they'll stand because I'm the incoming president. Is this really going to happen, you know, in corporate America? So, I tried it at a Young Presidents Organization, you know, and all of a sudden, same reaction. And what even was more amazing was when several CEOs came up to me and said to me, you just hit me in the heart, because it's exactly what I went through when I was young. So vulnerability, not for the sake of doing therapy for yourself in front of others, not for the sake of showing up, but vulnerability to show people that, hey, you know, you've also had your knocks, you know, you've also been there. This is how I've handled it. And so that became the basis for the book. And it really came to me right when I was done with the presidency. I don't know if you know this, I had 9 surgeries in the following 3 years, mostly on my back. You know how Tiger has 1 level fused in his back? I have 9 levels fused. Wow. And I can still play golf. But it was a really tough time, you know, down a lot, you know, couldn't travel, painkillers, and you're sitting there reflecting on your life. Now, at that time, I was getting near 60. And so you reflect on your life, you know, what were my successes? And I've had quite a few accomplishments, some of which you spoke about already. But then I also have quite a few things that didn't happen, things that I wanted to. And when I started looking at why they didn't happen, I realized, well, it's probably because of my fears and stories, things that prevented me from going forth and playing bigger. So with 60 coming up, now I'm 64, but at that time, I started realizing, you know, you don't have a lot of runway left. So if you really want to get to those things, you better get on the stick. You know, so it made me do a couple things. It made me clarify what I wanted the rest of my life to look like and what was important to me. And then it made me look at those fears at a little higher, deeper level and the stories and worked on them so I can clear the way so I can go on my journey to get to them. So that's where velocity started coming out. When I was able to get back to speaking, I hired a video guy that was well known, and I said, hey, I need you to create a new demo video for me. So I flew him down to the University of Texas. He filmed me doing a keynote. And I also hired him to rebrand my image. And he called me the next day. He goes, I got the brand. I go, what? He goes, Velocity Mindset. And all of a sudden, it hit me through the eyeballs. But I said, why did you come up with that? He said, well, it's all you talk about, number one. And number two, it's on your materials. You've written about it for the last 10 years. So I thought about it. I took the concept to 10 CEOs, and all of them loved the concept. Half of them had no clue what it meant, but they were attracted by the words. And the other half had an idea of what they meant. So I started thinking about it, and I said, okay, everything that I've been going through and the reaction to this thing, and I realized everybody wants velocity, except they don't know how to go out and get it. I decided to dedicate myself to a velocity mindset movement to make sure that after a given period of time, whatever it is for anybody, they don't sit there and say to themselves that they're depressed or upset because they just fell below the mark. They didn't get to where they wanted to be. That's a tough place for anybody to be in. So that was the basis of how I came up with that and the basis for the book.
I love that it comes, the origin of this comes from you wanting to essentially leave a legacy, right? So you've learned these things, and I think, when you get to a certain point in life and you look back and you're not going to go, boy, I wish I had worked more. I wish I had, so you want to be able to, do what you've gone through all of this. Your story is amazing. You've gone through all of those surgeries. You've had a change in your in your appearance, and you've gotten like so much more healthier and all of those things. And you're just putting it out there, saying, I want to give back to other people, and here's what I learned. Here's some of the mistakes I made, maybe, but here are some of the successes that I learned, and hopefully that can help somebody who may be too focused on, their life just in front of them, the few days in front of them, and maybe they can start building their legacy for others. I think that's a really amazing way to, because it feels like the book was started on the right foot. By having that mindset.
It was, and we call it a leadership book, but it's not just for managers. We all lead our lives. So it's really for anybody who's looking to have a better grasp on how to take control of their destiny and get to where they want to be. Now, here's an interesting story that I'll also share. COVID hits, right? Hits all of us, right? So I decided, okay, let's write the book. Let's spend our time, the perfect time to write it. We're not going anywhere. And then it'll come out when COVID starts, starting to regress and we open up again. Well, I'm ready to hand in my manuscript at the end of September. And my intuition talks to me. Now, I've had a heart murmur all my life, a leaky valve, and they've been tracking it. But my cardiologist kept saying, don't worry about it. You got to your 70s before you got to deal with it. I decided in COVID, why do I have to wait till I'm 70 to retire? I can move to Florida now, still work, do the things I want, but live the lifestyle I want. So I picked out a place. I was supposed to move on November 1st. Signed the contract at the end of September. After I signed it, my intuition said to me, you better go back to your cardiologist and do another echo because you may not be going to Florida. And I'm going, oh, come on, really, man? You gotta be kidding. And I said, dude, you wrote this in your book, so you're either gonna walk your talk or don't. And sure enough, I went and had the echo, and he pulled the fire alarm. He goes, oh my God, it got so tight. You're not going to Florida. You need to fix this now, because otherwise you have 2 years left and you could be gone in 6 months.
Wow.
And all of a sudden your eyes are popping out of your brain and going, what? So October 30th, I'm rushed in, for emergency surgery, open heart surgery in New York. And I met with the surgeon, a woman of incomparable credentials. And she blew me away because she checked every box in the book. How she handled me, how she had empathy, how she was able to get through my fears, and get me in the right frame of mind. And I said, you know what I have to do now? And she goes, what? I got to rewrite the introduction when I come out of the surgery and put you in there. And we did that. And so we were actually able to make it really relevant, after the surgery. And so I can only tell the audience that what's in that book, I used every piece of it to get through the surgery visualize what I want it to be like afterwards, and use it to heal.
Wow, that's amazing. And Ron, what I really like about the book, because I'm someone that obviously has been in leadership for many years as a Marine officer, is how you kind of break it into three parts, and it starts with mindset. You want to go a little bit into that, and also not to mention the stories that you put in this book from these people that have used the velocity mindset, even if they didn't know it at first.
Right. So, everybody wants to know what mindset. It's a pretty good catchword, right? Mindset is nothing more what you're grounded on and how you're thinking at the time you do something. And for the most part, the mindset for many of us at times can be corroded by our fears, can be corroded by our stories. And so we're not even starting off with the right mindset, and then we want to know why we're not having the success that we want to have. So, a great example I can give you is in salespeople, for example, right? I say in the book, pause. And someone said, so you have to pause? I said, no, sometimes you have to stop to gain velocity, and I'll explain more of that in a second. But, a salesperson that I may have been coaching will say, hey, I'm going on this big account. I said, okay, great. What's your goal for the meeting? Close the deal. I said, what's your sales cycle? 5 calls. What call is this? Number 1. So your goal is to close the deal on the first call. Can you see how by going in with that mindset, you're going to do the wrong actions? So, what do you want to do? The goal should be to qualify the customer and make sure that, you have a path forward identified and how you two are going to work together. So the mindset really dictates the actions. So let me explain it to you this way also. If I say to you guys, and Jim and Chris answer it, what is the first word when you hear the word velocity? What comes to your mind?
Something moving fast, like a car or something.
Right.
Speed, right?
Right, exactly. And if that's all you think, that's not velocity. Because what happens is we're all task-oriented. We're following our to-do list. We're doing all these tasks. And how many times at the end of the day are we fully exhausted? And we look and we say, oh, yeah, we checked off all the tasks. But at the end of the day, you're not fulfilled because you're saying to yourself, what did I really accomplish? That's because in their mindset, they didn't have the right destiny down. Where are you trying to get to? The real definition, the physics definition of velocity is speed with direction. And so one of the parts of the book is called destiny. So you have to, before you start anything, you have to visualize what the end is in sight that you want to go after your destiny. Now, Nito Cobain, who's the president of High Point University and wrote the foreword to the book, I had him doing a live stream with me. And he came from Lebanon as a teenager with only $50 in his pocket and became a huge success here. So I asked him, I said, Nito, when you came here, did you have a vision, a destiny of what you wanted to do? And he made a really good distinction. He goes, yeah, I had a vision, but clarity of vision only happens when you go on a journey. So now what happens to people is they have the night. First of all, most people can't even figure out where they want to go. So this book will help them figure it out. But then they get scared for a couple of reasons. They get scared because they don't have all the answers up front. They don't have the clarity. And what we tell leaders and people who control their destiny is, if you're really trying to improve something at any level, then how can you expect to have the answers up front on how to do it? If you had those answers, you would have been there already. So real leaders are comfortable not having the answers up front. They're comfortable that they want to go to where that place is. They're passionate about it, so every time they come into an obstacle, they're going to keep finding a way around it. But they're also comfortable not having the answers. But it all starts with that destiny. Where do I want to go? And if people can really just work on that, that in itself will give them velocity in their lives.
Do you think a lot of this has to do with in developing this mindset? And I know for myself, I have a difficult, sort of problem with, people will call it, perfectionism or whatever it is. All I know is that I spend way too much time on things where I'm not getting a lot of return for that investment. And so what I end up doing is I do a lot, and I work my tail off, but I sort of like what you say. Some days you feel like you haven't really done anything. You've done a lot of little things that haven't moved you forward. And so the whole multitasking thing, it really just sort of wears on you. And until I can do what you're saying, and that is pause and do one thing really well, and then you've taken that step forward. You actually have moved forward instead of just sort of doing a bunch of things and spinning in the same place. Is that addressed in the book as well?
Absolutely. We talk about neuroscience, and we can even talk about engagement in a couple of minutes. But in terms of multitasking, that's a farce. Okay, and I can break it down for you this way. Okay, I can have 5 things that I'm doing at once, but I'm not literally doing them at once. I got 5 things that are in my mind taking away my attention that I'm thinking about. But then all of a sudden, oh, I got this interview with Dealcasters. Let me go there. But then if I'm thinking about the other things, I'm looking at my email while I'm doing it. So how present will I be on that Dealcaster interview? And remember, every time your thought gets taken away from what you're doing, when you come back to it, then you got to waste time getting back to the spot you were at. You got to get back into that zone. You got to get back to, think about where you were. So you're actually wasting time when you're doing 5 things at once, and you're not even doing as good a job as you can. So the trick is prioritize and do those that are more germane to that destination that you want at any given time. And then if you have time left over for the other stuff, go do it. And you'll be less stressed.
I think that's a very important point you brought up, Ron, right? You didn't say do the most important thing. You said do the things that are going to get you to the destination. Because I think that's where I see a lot of times we all get caught up in the like, oh, I got to get all this stuff done, or we'll do the easy stuff that's not going to get us to the destination just to say, oh, look, I accomplished something. So I think that's a very powerful message that you brought there of how you really have to think about moving forward. And like you said, having that velocity, you have a specific direction that you're headed into.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So tell us a couple of the folks that you talk about in the book that really stood out to you. I'm really interested in some of that. So
another part of the book that second section is called alignment. And alignment is really important because if you're a leader, even if you're just leading yourself, whenever you want to get to another level, you can't do it on your own. We have to do it by other people helping us, okay? So how do you engage people? So if you want, let's have a little fun with the audience, with ourselves in front of the audience, and we'll have some entertainment. How is that?
Sounds good.
All right, you trust me?
Yeah,
sure.
All right, we're going to do a role play. All right? Now, before I do the role play, let me give you a little neuroscience. It's not that difficult. We have hormones in our brain that control our level of engagement. The first hormone I'm going to talk about is cortisol, which is the fight or flight hormone. We all have it. The question is, if it's too high, and take a continuum of 1 to 10, 10 being high, if it's too high, like 6 and above, you're not really that engaged because you got some anxiety, you're feeling like the conversation is not for you, and you start, 6 to 7, you got some anxiety, you're not really engaged as much. 7 to 10, you start checking out mentally or you leave, okay? 1 and 2, the cortisol is there, but it's not really active. It's like, this is interesting, I'm here. 3 to 5 is when you get actually 4 to 5 is when you get real engagement, all right? So let's suppose I happen to hear about your show, you do a great job, and I want to pitch myself to be on your show. How's that?
Let's get the cortisol going.
I'm sure you don't get those calls, right? Now, we have to understand whether we're salespeople or if we're calling anybody, we're automatically an interruption in someone's life. Even if we have a conference call set, we're still an interruption because, I got a call, I'm doing all these things, I got to get on this call, right? So all of a sudden, at the beginning of any kind of conversation, there's usually a little higher level of cortisol. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so now let's see what happens. I'll be the salesperson. I'll be the one pitching for the interview. And who wants to be my customer? Well, who's representing the show. I'll do it with Chris.
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
Oh God! I was gonna say Jim, but let's do it. My cortisol's already jacked up.
Yeah. And I'm gonna do the heavy lifting, Chris. Okay. So here we go. Okay, here we go.
right.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Ron?
Hey, good. Hey, I saw your show, and I know you do a great show, and I got a great product that's going to be ideal for your show on Amazon. And what it is, it's a great book that's going to really leave a lot of impacts for people. It's something that they haven't read before, and I just guarantee you that if we have a conversation on it, it's just going to like to show up. All right, right now, at the beginning of the conversation, just when I started, picture yourself busy. You're doing production work or whatever you're doing, and you get this call. At that moment when you answer it and you hear it's about to be a pitch, where's your cortisol level?
I would say probably 6.
Okay. After I started doing that pitch, which lasted no more than probably a minute, where's your cortisol now?
2 or 3.
Okay. That's good, meaning you're not really engaged, right? You've heard this?
Well, I was engaged, but like I guess I was more relaxed. Like I got a little more tense. Like I was thinking, okay, what exactly, like where are we going to put, this person? What's the, my mind's going to a calendar setup, all of that, and so that kind of raises it up. But you started talking immediately about, I have this, this product. It's going to help people, and that brought it back down.
And it was all about me.
Mm-hmm.
Not about you.
Right.
All right. And the other thing is that we get 2 reactions. Some people go, it went up to a 7 or 8 because they don't got time for salespeople, or it goes low, like you said. All right. I'm going to do it a different way. Same environment. You're really busy. You're working on 5 projects at the same time. You get this guy, Ron Karr. You have no idea who he is. All right. And I'm going to start it again. Okay.
All right.
Hey, Chris, how you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Look, I know you're really busy. Hey, congratulations on the show. I've watched it a few times. I got to tell you, you guys do a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Can I ask you a question? If you had a guest on that show, what would be the 3 outcomes from that interview you would want to have for your audience?
It's an interesting question. I would say we'd want to impact people so that they were helped in developing their show, their live stream, their podcast. That would be like first and foremost. And, you'd like to be able to make a little money doing what we're doing. That's probably another goal, and have fun.
Okay, let's stop.
Yeah.
At this moment, where's your cortisol?
Like, I'm engaged, right? So I immediately
4 or 5?
4 or 5? Probably 4.
Yeah, either one works because that's the true area of engagement. Okay. Now, you have no idea what I can do, right? At this point, you have no idea who I am, actually, right?
Right.
But yet you're really engaged. Why?
I'm answering your question. I think it's almost like if you ask somebody, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" or you say, "I wonder if you could help me," or something like that. I think people are automatically, sort of, it's in their nature.
Right, but I didn't even ask you if I could help you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I asked you about yourself and what you're trying to achieve.
And our show and
on your show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's break this down for a second. There's another hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is the love and trust hormone. Now, you'll agree with me that trust is earned, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, in this short period of time, I can't really earn a lot of trust. But would you agree that I have to earn a little trust for you to start giving me those answers you gave me?
Yeah.
Because you started giving me answers about yourself, right?
Right. Well, you started out and you congratulated me on the successful show. So there's a compliment in there, right, which made me feel good. And then I think that probably helped.
Okay, now this is the audience participation part. I'm going to ask the audience to look at Chris again. And you probably got, 100,000 people right now looking at you. So don't be self-conscious, okay? But and Chris, I want you to be natural. Don't change any reactions because you have no idea what I'm after here. But I want the audience to look at you, okay? I'm going to ask that same question again and just be yourself again and do what you do, okay? So, Chris, you know, when you have a guest on the show, what are the 3 outcomes you want to achieve for the audience?
We want to help
Stop.
people.
Did you see that, Jim?
I did.
What happened?
He kind of moved his eyes to the side, thinking for a minute, and then he
They went up.
Yep.
Exactly. And we noticed this. We were working for major financial services and we were telling them to do this, and everybody's eyes started rolling up. And then when neuroscience came out, we started getting a scientific reason what was happening. There was actually a shift of hormones in your brain at that moment. That's how we can, that's the power of influence that people need to understand. When I asked you, what are the 3 things you want your audience to get out of this? And your eyes rolled up. Some go to the left, some go to the right, doesn't matter. All of a sudden, you stop thinking about something. You stop thinking about whether or not it's going to be a pain in the butt to you. You stop thinking about, I don't want to buy something from this guy. And you got lost in your life, right?
Yep.
So describe for the audience, if you can, in your own words, what that shift was in terms of emotions and feelings at that moment when your eyes rolled up when I asked you that question. What were you thinking?
I was thinking that this is someone who wants to hear something about my show. So I internalized it like, you know, it made me want to have engagement with you because you want to know about something that is important to me.
Right. And then that led to you thinking about it, putting out of your mind all the other thoughts of what you have to do, and giving me valuable information that I need in order to learn how to influence you. Positive. It's not manipulation, by the way. We're not talking manipulation here.
Oh, I know, yeah.
We're talking about if this is a good thing for me, yeah, I'm going to go after it. If it's not, I'll send you to somebody else. But that's what it's about. So what happened was you started trusting me a little bit because it was about you, not about me. You started giving me information, and then something else happened. Dopamine is the 3rd hormone we talk about. Dopamine is the feel-good hormone. Did you start feeling better about the conversation after I asked you that question?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, because now there's a hidden idea in your mind that, hey, maybe this can help me. Maybe this can help us do something really good for the audience, right? So dopamine rides with oxytocin, right? But it's not by itself. So to put it, you know, first of all, what you want to do as a leader, and anybody's a leader, it's not just a manager. If you want to influence anybody in life, the first thing you have to do is pause. Find out what the goal is that you want out of that conversation. And then understand that the first thing you have to do is predict what the environment's going to be and create a stable and safe environment for someone to want to be engaged with you. If all you do is talk about yourself, you're going the opposite way and raising the cortisol. But if you can start having someone talk about what's important and what they're struggling with, what they're trying to accomplish, that's when you get them into that engaged area. And then that leads to the second half of the psychology of influence. Psychology of influence is find out where someone's going and then present the 1 or 2 things that's going to help them get there in context to what they just told you. And now you have it all wrapped up with a nice ribbon.
Wow. Can I get off the couch now, Doc?
Yes, you can. My bill is in the mail.
No, you know, and I think it's awesome because I think initially, you know, and the way this whole thing kind of played out, my mind was going to sales pitches and sales calls, and you know, it's always about, you know, don't say I, we, us, say you. You know, and focus on somebody else's thing. And, you know, I also feel like, you know, that's important, but it can't be manufactured. It has to be genuine. And so now you're speaking to leaders, you're speaking to CEOs. And I think a lot of people that are managers got to be managers and high-level people because they worked really hard and did a great job. But then all of a sudden, you know, they get promoted and they're, you know, maybe C-level or management or whatever, but they've never really learned how to manage people and how to really lead people, right? And so these are These are things that it might look on paper or sound initially like it's sales oriented, but how do you apply this kind of methodology for people who want to be better leaders or feel like they're not leadership qualities at all?
So number one, we have to understand that people do things for their own reasons, not for yours. Okay, it's the basic fact of influence. Mm-hmm. Number two, the environment has changed. I just gave a talk yesterday for Young Presidents Organization, and they had on a speaker before me who I love, bought his book, and he talked about how he turned around this company by treating every employee as part of the family, getting to know them, making sure they had what they needed, so they wanted to come to work, not that they had to come to work. You know, I always say there's two types of productivity. There's the productivity just to do enough and keep your job. And there's the other productivity where you always go 110% because you always want to do the best. That's what you want out of all the employees. So in the book, I share a story that I was in a CEO's office that I was on retainer with, and one of his production supervisors stormed in and goes, I can't believe it. And I go, what? We're behind in this job and this guy's always on a cell phone. I said, what'd you do? I told him to get off the damn cell phone. What did he say? Everybody else is on a cell phone. And what did you do? Get off. And what happened? He walked away. What did you do? I walked away. How did that help you? So if we break it down into what we just talked about, we know that if you go to an employee or anybody, everybody's already want to protect themselves, right? So if we pause and think ahead, right? Create that safe environment. He didn't create a safe environment. He went straight at that guy, criticizing him for being on a cell phone, leaving that guy only one thing to do, protect himself and justify it. And they never even got to the issue of being late. So I asked the supervisor, I said, what do you know about the individual? Well, he wants to be a master welder. What do you need? Exceptional quality and on time. How's his quality? Great. And he's late on this job. Yes. So why don't you just go up to him and say, hey, you know, I know you're on your track for being a master welder. You need two things, quality and timeliness. Your quality is great. On this job, you're 20 minutes behind. What do you think we can do to get you back on track? And all of a sudden, the guy starts coming up with his own ideas to get back on track, and he's engaged. So what was the difference? Everything we just talked about. He lowered the guy's cortisol, got it to an engaged level by talking about what was important to him, then presenting his request in relation to that. And the cell phone never even came up. And that's what happens. We're always fighting on the wrong issues because we're not knowledgeable about this. And if we could be really knowledgeable, know what the real issues are and how to get that destiny in place and so forth, then you'll be doing the right actions in those conversations.
Well, and the thing I saw too, Ron, the way you approached Chris, you know, Chris wanted to make sure that he gave you a genuine answer about what are those three things he really wants the people that watch the show to get out of watching the show, because he didn't want to give you a garbage answer because you had complimented him. And it's like, wow, this guy, you know, really is impressed with what I'm doing. I don't want to come back as looking like a, you know, a thug, you know, a thud, so to speak. And
a New Yorker.
Yeah, a New Yorker.
Which I am, so.
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell at all. So you mentioned earlier the speech impediment.
Right.
And how you owned that, and somebody said, "Hey, you need to be talking about that." I'd love to hear that story, and I think it would be it'd be great for the audience to hear that as well if you're able to share that.
Sure. Well, I'll share it like I'm giving it in the speech. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, that'll work.
All right. You ever been at the top of the mountain where no matter what you could do, it was happening? You were powerful. You were invincible. For me, that moment was on July 30th, 2013. The Grand Ballroom of the Marriott Hotel in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, the birthplace of the United States of America. I'm standing in the wings of the Grand Ballroom, and the chairperson is welcoming the 2,000 professional speakers, thought leaders, and experts from all over the world. And then I hear this rendition of God Bless America. Land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. And I have to admit, At that moment, even for a jaded New Yorker, my eyes misted over. And then I heard, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 40th president of the National Speakers Association, Ron Karr. And as I walked on stage, these 2,000 thought leaders and experts all leapt to their feet, and I gave my acceptance speech, after which they did the same thing, leaping to their feet and giving me a rousing standing ovation. With Bruce Springsteen singing in the background, come on up for the rising, come on up, lay your hands in mine, come on up for the rising, come on up for the rising tonight. Now, I have to tell you, at that moment, I have to admit that when I was a young boy, that moment wasn't even a speck of a possibility in my mind. You see, when I was young, a teenager, I was constantly teased. That's the polite way of saying humiliated, because I could not enunciate the letter R. And people would ask me, what is it? And I couldn't even tell them the name of the condition because some brilliant person decided to name it with a word that started with a letter I can't even enunciate. It's called rhoticism, or as I can only call it, oticism. So, you know, and then on top of that, my brilliant parents decided to name me Ron Karr. I was set up from failure since the day I was born. So you can't even enunciate your name, and you can imagine how life was just pure hell for me. And after I had a lot of pain, finally, I decided to go to the speech pathologist in the high school. And I said, can you help me? And after 45 minutes of putting my tongue in spots and positions it never was in, and sounds coming out that I didn't even understand, I gave up in frustration and stormed out. This is not going to happen. Well, after another year of a lot of pain, I decided, you know, there's only one person who can change it. If you don't like the reaction, change the action. So I found a speech pathologist in New York who was really good. And I said, do we have hope? She goes, yes, but it's not going to take one day. It's not going to take 1 week. It could take a year, 2 years. But the question is, how committed are you? If you're committed to go through that pain, I'll take you there. And it's not just the one session a week. It's the days that you're going to have to do it without me. But lo and behold, it worked. And I got rid of that speech impediment. And now when it shows up once in a while, I just simply excuse it as my New York accent. So that's the story.
Oh man, thank you for sharing that. That's yeah, that's amazing. The funniest part I think of that is, you know, the letter you can't pronounce is it basically starts and ends your name. You know, it's like so when you had that and someone would ask you what your name is, you would just not, like, you couldn't even say R. It was Ron Karr. Is that?
Yeah. So I'll share something that is confidential, and
just between us and tens of thousands of viewers.
Yeah. My one of my best friends from college was still very close. He and his wife and I. He nicknamed me Wonka, because I couldn't pronunciate R. But he's the only one who's allowed to call me that. He and his wife. No one else.
Fair enough.
That's amazing.
So for those that are maybe just have joined and you're enjoying this great conversation with our friend Ron Karr, Ron's got a brand new book out, and well, can we still call it brand new book, Ron? Or is I mean, for you, it's probably been, you know, you've known this thing for months, right? But it's new to the car buying public.
It's 5 weeks out. So it's
the
still
velocity mindset, and if you're watching us on Amazon, it is right below, highlighted in the carousel. Make sure you pick up your copy today. And if you're not over on Amazon and you're watching on all these other places, you can get right here to the interview, not miss a beat, not skip a beat, and you know, join in the conversation with us and pick up the book. And we made it easy. All you got to do is go to dealcasters.live and join us here in the chat on Amazon with Mr. Ron Karr. Jim, I'm sorry. I think I interrupted you asking a question.
Oh no, I was showing the book, but Ron, I know we'll be wrapping up here soon. What is the final part is about, like, alignment. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we kind of did with the role play, you know, how to align yourself with someone where they're trying to go. But I'll end it with one thing, and it goes back to something that Chris brought up when a manager gets promoted. When we rise in our careers, so when you think about who gets a promotion usually, in sales, let's say, it's usually the store salesperson, right? But we know that most of them will never be a good manager. Why? Well, the profile of a store salesperson is someone's a go-getter, doesn't rely on others and goes and does what it has to do to get the job. Now they get promoted to national manager or whatever. If they don't understand what the new job is, they're going to fail. So we had a situation with a client where I had a national account manager, and he was a store salesperson when he was coming up, and they promoted him. So what do store salespeople usually like? They like to hunt. They like to go out there and solve problems. They're like, firemen waiting for the bell to ring so they can go to the rescue, right? Now they're a manager. How boring can that be, right? So a salesperson in Kansas calls the guy up and says, hey, I got a problem with this account. No problem. I'll be out there Thursday. And they fly out there. And what's the first thing they do? They take over the call to save the day because they know what to do. That is the worst thing they can do. Their job changed and they didn't realize it. Their job now is not to be the hero. Their job now is to help their people become the hero, because now their results are based on the sum total of all those who report to him. So, I had to coach him and saying, look, you're really doing yourself and that person a disservice, because you're training that sales team to call you every time they have an issue, not to figure it out on their own. If you really want to do your job, don't take over that call. And, see what goes on, coach in between the next call, and look for continuous improvements. This way, eventually, they're going to be doing it 24/7 on every day you're not there, and that's what you want. Otherwise, you're going to burn out, and you're going to be traveling so much, and you're going to not even get close to the results that you want to get to.
That's so true. So true.
It is for a lot of people that become managers, and even if you go through training, a lot of that just is you've just got to go through that experience, right? You've got to learn, by failure or whatever. It's difficult for some people to not just delegate, but to really sort of lean into the people that you're responsible for to do their job, and it's not that's why you're in that position, is to, otherwise, to your point, you're not going to gain velocity. You're not going to get anything done because you're handling these other people that were employed to do the job that you end up just doing. It's
and there's one basic principle for that, but also for people in your show, in your audience who are not managers. The basic principle is this: help anybody become more successful, and then you'll become more successful than you'll ever thought possible.
Amen. I completely agree with that. That is so true. I mean, I think, like, with what we do with this show, Chris and I want to help others become better live streamers, better podcasters, just, anything we can do to help increase somebody's confidence whether behind a microphone, in front of a camera. And that's why we like having guests like you, Ron, because you really help us get that mindset right. And this book is definitely something that can help anyone, right? It's not just, like you said, it's not someone that's a leader. I mean, because it's that whole thing, right? Some people say leaders are born, not made. I would disagree with it. I think if someone's willing to work at it, they can definitely become a leader. It may not always be easy because they're going to have to change their mindset.
By the way, that thing, leaders are not born, that's a story. And the other thing that we cover in the book is the stories we tell ourselves. And the key point is this: every reaction we have to whatever someone says to us or whatever happens to us, whatever reaction we have is a story. We interpret it as to what it means, and it's just a story. Most of the time, we're wrong. You ever have someone say something, you got so upset with them, and then 2 months later, when they had a chance to talk to them, that's not even what I had in mind. And yet 2 months, how much of that time did it bother you and affect you and strip you of velocity? So for the audience, I just want you to remember one thing. Everything in your mind about anything is a story. And the good news is whoever wrote the story can rewrite it. So find out if your stories are serving you well, and if they're not, simply just rewrite it and strip the emotion away.
Amazing. One thing before we go, I know we want to talk about this offer for everyone that's watching and or listening to the podcast later. First of all, make sure if you're watching and you're loving what you're hearing, make sure you pick up Ron Karr's new book, The Velocity Mindset, available on Amazon. And if you're here with us on Amazon Live, it's right below us. But Ron, I know that you've got a leadership assessment at velocitymindset.com. Can you talk about that maybe for a minute?
And again, this is for anybody who wants to take control of their lives, lead others, lead themselves. So we have a free leadership assessment where you're going to rank yourself and how you feel you're doing. But in that assessment, in each part, you're going to get summaries of what you can actually do to boost that score. So you're going to get valuable tips and how-tos of how you can move forward.
Awesome. Great stuff. All right, pick up the book, Velocity Mindset, from Ron Karr, and head over to velocitymindset.com. That's free. What are you waiting for? Ron, we always love to give deals here on, and you brought the deal to Dealcasters, so that was amazing. And what better deal than free, right, Jim?
Yeah,
that's right. Right, the best deal ever, free. But buy the book. Awesome. I think it's definitely something you want to do. Ron, thank you so much for joining us. It's been fun to actually be able to be on the camera with you because I get to listen to Ron do some great interviews behind the scenes, and he's had some amazing guests. So go check him out on LinkedIn too, or even his YouTube channel, and check out some of these interviews he's had with some of the folks in the book.
Thank you. And Jim and Chris, thank you so much for your trust in me and for being here. And it was a great time. And I wish you all well.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks for putting me on the couch, Doctor. I appreciate that session as well in neuroscience.
And we don't take medical insurance, so the bills in the mail.
All right, everybody. As always, don't fear the gear.